he's not an immigrant, he's an orphan. I saw this online, this fierce, passionate keyboard smashing argument, and I just I had to laugh because that statement, that beautiful, contradictory, wonderfully confused statement, it's everything. It's the whole story. It's proof that the myth is alive. It's proof that it's still working. See, the absolute genius of Superman's origin story is that it has never ever been finished. It's not a static text carved into stone. It's a living document. It's a cultural mirror that has spent the better part of a century reflecting back the exact hopes, fears, anxieties, and arguments of whatever American era is looking into it. And that's the debate. That's the debate right there. I mean, that's just the latest reflection. It's the 21st century version of a question that has been asked and answered in a dozen different ways for almost 90 years now. So let's dive in. Let's really get into it, because to understand why someone today would get so heated about whether the last son of Krypton is an immigrant or an orphan, you have to go back to the beginning. The real beginning. 1938. Action Comics #1. And you have to forget everything you think you know. Forget the sprawling Kryptonian vistas. Forget the grand, booming voice of a famous actor playing Jor-El. Forget the Kent farm, the fields of golden wheat, the small town values. Forget all of it. In 1938, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster gave us Superman's origin in a single, breathtakingly efficient page. One single page. They had a longer version, of course, but it was cut for space. And what we're left with is this raw, unadorned, almost brutalist piece of storytelling. So, it goes like this. There's a planet. It's unnamed. It's just a distant planet that is dying of old age. There's a scientist. He is also unnamed. He puts his infant son into a hastily devised spaceship and launches him towards Earth. The ship lands. The text says, a passing motorist finds the baby and drops him off at an orphanage. That's it. We don't even see it happen. No kindly couple, no heartfelt decision, just a handoff to an institution. The next panel is the baby, now named Clark Kent, at the orphanage, lifting a heavy armchair over his head, shocking his minders. It implies he grew up there. An institution kid. And his powers? Well, get this. The comic explains that everyone from his home planet had this strength. And its scientific justification for this? It says, and I quote, that from our world, ants and grasshoppers can perform amazing feats of strength and leaping. That's the explanation. It's an insect analogy. So yes, Superman was technically Ant-Man. And this is so important. And this is the thesis. The foundational Superman. He isn't a god among men. He isn't a celestial savior. He's a product of the Great Depression. He's a champion of the oppressed, an urban social justice warrior. The insect analogy isn't lazy, it's just populist. It's taking science and making it understandable, relatable for a kid in 1938. Because if there's something poor people know about, it's bugs. The orphanage upbringing isn't just a sad details. It frames him as an outsider, one of the forgotten people he would spend his early days fighting for. He wasn't fighting aliens, he wasn't corrupt politicians, abusive husbands, and exploitative factory workers. He was a folk hero. He was a power fantasy for people who felt powerless. So when today people get into these heated debates online, screaming that he's an undocumented alien and the Kents forged this paper, they're projecting our modern anxieties onto a story that in its infancy, had zero of that baggage. The original story wasn't about immigration law or national identity. It was about raw power in the hands of the little guy. The idea of deporting him would have been nonsensical. Deporting him where? To the orphanage down the street? But then, the world changes, and so the myth has to change with it. Just 1 year later, in 1939, Siegel and Shuster get to expand the origin story for Superman when they make the Superman the newspaper strip. And right away, the first major pieces of the puzzle click into place. The planet gets its name, Krypton. His parents get names, Jor-El and Laura. Note the spelling. It's not spelled with E-L, just the letter L. And his Kryptonian name is Kal-El. We get that iconic scene for the first time. Jor-El, the brilliant scientist, pleading with the Kryptonian Council who laugh him off. The single edition is monumental. It introduces a theme that will resonate for decades. Institutional failure. The system failed. The people in charge were arrogant and blind to the facts of their climate change that led to the epic unaliving of their planet. It's a theme that never goes out of style. And then in Superman #1, later that same year, the story gets another crucial revision. The passing motorist from Action Comic, you remember that guy? He now has a wife, and their last name is Kent. Mary Kent, specifically. And in a key difference, they do take the baby to an orphanage, but then they have a change of heart and went back to adopt him. This was a seismic shift. This is the moment the story decides that Superman's moral compass won't come from an institution. It won't be an innate part of his alien biology. It will be instilled in him by two good people, by his parents. It domesticates his origin. It grounds his godlike power in human love. But even then, look at the panels. They are living in the city. It was still an urban upbringing. The rural pastoral Americana we associate with him, it's nowhere to be found. Not yet. And this is where the story starts to splinter and experiment, which is just fascinating. The 1940s radio show comes along and throws a bunch of wild ideas at the wall. Krypton is in our solar system, just on the other side of the sun. So when the rocket lands, a full-grown man in a Superman costume steps out. He gets the name Clark Kent from a random kid he meets. None of these sticks to our myth today, but it shows how the myth was still fluid, still searching for its final form. And the real turning point, the moment that truly invents the Superman we know today, comes from the most unlikely of places. In 1942, prose novel by George Lowther, one of the radio show's writers. A book that is mostly forgotten today, but mother of pearl, its contribution is immeasurable. It's in this book that Laura is renamed Lara. Jor-El gets his modern spelling, though not yet with his capitalization. And for the first time, Eben and Sarah Kent, their name would change again, became farmers. This is it. This was the birth of the farm boy. This is the invention of the Midwestern agrarian ideal that will become the absolute bedrock for the character's identity. This shift is a conscious choice, moving Superman's moral center away from the grit of the city and into the perceived purity and integrity of the American heartland. It's a narrative choice that perfectly aligns with a wartime nation that is valorizing rural life as a bastion of stability and moral clarity. And Lowther adds another incredible layer. Clark's powers, they don't appear all at once. They manifest slowly as he grows up. This idea of a gradual discovery of a teenage Clark struggling with these emerging abilities, gets dropped for a while, but it will come back later, decades later, to become the new standard. But it was all right there in 1942. This is the antithesis taking shape. The original urban social justice warrior Superman that is being reimagined for a new era. And the Cold War is about to lock it all into place. So the 1940s and the 50s are all about consolidation for Superman, about building a canon. And in 1944, in Orphan Comics number 101, we get a huge retcon to explain a nagging logical error. The question was this: if Krypton was full of super people, why didn't they just fly away? Well, the comic introduces Superboy and establishes crucially that Kryptonians were powerless in their own world. Instead, their powers came from Earth's weaker gravity. A simple yet elegant fix that preserves Superman's uniqueness on Earth while making Kryptonians' fate more tragic. Then the names, they start to stabilize. In 1948, Superman number 53 renames the Kents into John and Mary. Close. In 1950, in a Superboy comic, Mary became Marth. So close. And then, in 1951, Adventure Comics number 169 gave us the final iconic name, Martha Kent.
Martha! What does that mean? Why did you say that name? Fine!
The same year, Superboy number 2 officially names the town Smallville. The setting is no longer ambiguous. It is a specific, idyllic place. The nuclear family, the small town, these become symbolic bulwarks against the anxieties of the atomic age. And then comes the final piece of the scientific puzzle. In 1960, Action Comic number 262 introduces the single most enduring explanation for his powers: Earth's yellow sun. Krypton, we learn, orbited a red sun, under which Kryptonians were normal. This wasn't just a random sci-fi lore. It was a perfect metaphor for the era. The space race is on. The public is fascinated and terrified by radiation and atomic energy. The idea that different solar energies could unlock hidden potential resonated deeply, and also separates the yellow bellies and the red suns. His power was no longer just biological gravitational, it was cosmic. It was contingent to his environment. He owed his strength to the very world he was protecting. So you see the shift? The thesis was the raw Depression-era folk hero from an orphanage. The antithesis is the post-war, Cold War icon of American exceptionalism. He's a farm boy from Smallville, raised by Ma and Pa Kent, empowered by our yellow sun. His alienness is now a source of national strength, a story of an outsider who becomes the ultimate insider, the perfect symbol for a nation grappling with the own piece of a new world order. And then we get this synthesis, the grand unification. 1978, Superman the movie. Richard Donner's film was more than a movie. It's a cultural watershed moment. It takes all these disparate elements from 40 years of comics, radio shows, and serials and fuses them into a single cohesive mythic whole. Donner's authorial signature is one of absolute sincerity. He called it verisimilitude. He wanted you to believe that a man could fly. And to do that, he treated the source material with a reverence that was, at the time, unheard of. He understood he wasn't just adapting a comic book, he was translating American mythology. And he adds his own crucial, iconic layers. For the first time, Smallville is explicitly placed in Kansas, cementing its identity as the heart of the heartland. And the S on his chest, it's not just for Superman. It's now a family crest, the symbol of the House of El. This one change does so much work. It deepens his connection to his heritage, turning his costume from a simple uniform into a proud declaration of his identity, its legacy. And the Fortress of Solitude. It's no longer just a secret hideout. It's a crystalline cathedral of memory, a vast archive of Kryptonian history, containing a living holographic recording of his father. That ghost-dad relationship becomes a cornerstone of the mythos, a way for Clark to connect with a past he never knew. It takes the Silver Age's sci-fi grandness and infuses it with a deep emotional, almost spiritual weight. The film is a perfect synthesis of the grounded, moral clarity of the Kent's farm and the cosmic tragic nobility of Krypton. It's the version that lives in most people's heads to this day. But even that wasn't the end of the evolution, because the comics themselves were about to have their own cataclysm. In 1986, after the reality rewriting event Crisis on Infinite Earths, DC handed the keys to the kingdom to writer-artist John Byrne for a miniseries called The Man of Steel. And Byrne, in his own act of synthesis, created the next definitive origin. He took the sincerity and mythic scope of the Donner film, but streamlined it for a modern comic book audience. And he erased the Superboy entirely. Clark doesn't put on the costume until he is an adult. He brought back the idea from the 1942 novel. Clark's powers developed only during his adolescence. He was not a super baby. He's a teenager struggling with a world that's suddenly too loud, too fragile. It made his journey a story of self-discovery, not of predetermined destiny. And in his most significant change, Byrne decided that Jonathan and Martha Kent do not die. They survive. They are there to see their sons become Supermen, to be his confidence, his moral anchor. This grounds the character in a way nothing had before. It makes his connection to humanity an active, ongoing relationship. Byrne's Superman was a product of both worlds, forever navigating the tension between his Kryptonian heritage and his human upbringing. This is the version that sets the stage for everything that followed. It took the best of the Golden Age's grounded morality, the Silver Age's epic backstory, and the Donner film's emotional sincerity, and created a complex, modern, psychological portrait. Which brings us to now. It brings us to that internet debate, the Reddit thread, the Twitter arguments. It brings us to the flame war and the anger. It brings us to the final crucial author comparison.
It's a lot.
Richard Donner versus Zack Snyder. If Donner's 1978 film was the perfect synthesis for a post-Watergate America, craving a figure of unambiguous moral clarity, Zack Snyder's 2013 Man of Steel is the inevitable evolution for a post-9/11 world steeped in anxiety, skepticism, and the consequences of power. Snyder's entire authorial signature is about deconstruction. He looks at these myths and says, but what would it really be like? So he takes the Donner template and subverts it at every turn. Donner's Krypton was a sterile crystalline utopia whose destruction was an allegory of political hubris. Snyder's Krypton is a dark, organic, biomechanical world whose society has stagnated due to eugenics and genetic predeterminism. Its destruction is an allegory for our modern fears of biotechnological overreach. Donner's Clark discovers his powers with a sense of childhood joy. Snyder's Clark experiences his power as a terrifying, painful sensory overload. The X-ray vision and super hearing aren't gifts, they're a curse. an alienation that forces him to retreat from the world. It's a powerful metaphor for information saturation in the digital age. Donner's Superman declares allegiance to truth, justice, and the American way. Snyder's Superman exists in a world where those concepts are fractured and contested. He destroys a military surveillance drone. His first contact with the government is a mutual suspicion. This isn't a betrayal of the character. It's the character once again reflecting the times. This is a Superman in the age of Edward Snowden, of drone warfare, of a pervasive distrust in institution. And this is why that online argument is so perfect. Because it's wrong, and we're not talking about that. But, and this is a big but, just as the world never stops turning, the mirror must eventually show a new reflection. The anxieties of the 2010s have curdled into the cynicism and deep-seated division of the 2020s. So what comes after Deconstruction? When you've taken the myth apart to see how it works, what do you do with the pieces? The answer, it seems, is Reconstruction. And that is the project being undertaken by director James Gunn. If Snyder's authorial signature was a question, what would it really be like? Then Gunn's appear to be a declaration. This is why we need him to be good. Gunn is not retreating to the sincerity of Donner. He is mounting an offensive with it. He is looking at our modern world fractured by bad faith, political polarization, and exhausting cynicism. And he is proposing that a simple, unwavering kindness is not a quaint, old-fashioned ideal. It is a profound, almost defiant act of rebellion. This is not Superman reflecting our anxiety. This is Superman presented as the antidote to it. You can see this reconstruction happening in every choice. The dark, textured alien suit of Snyder's film is gone, replaced by a suit of bright primary colors with the classic red trunks and an S shield drawn directly from the comic Kingdom Come. A story about a hero reclaiming his hope. Gunn has explicitly stated that he is drawing inspiration from comics like All-Star Superman, which celebrate the character's empathy and inherent goodness above all else. His film will begin with Superman already established, bypassing the alienation and focusing instead on a hero struggling to remain a pillar of moral clarity in a world that has lost its own. It is a story for an era that seems to have forgotten what unambiguous good even looks like. This is the next crucial phase of the cycle. It is not a repeat of the past, it is an act of cultural reconstruction, taking pieces of deconstructed God and purposely reassembling them into the hero we need now. It proves once again that the character's most enduring superpower is his infinite capacity for reinvention. And when James Gunn's Superman finally arrived, it wasn't just a promise, it was a thesis statement delivered with breathtaking clarity. The genius of the film is that Superman's primary antagonist wasn't just a single villain, but a pervasive, world-ending idea. The seductive belief that in a broken world, kindness is naive, and that compassionate power is a dangerous liability. The story proved its reconstructionist purpose by making the central conflict a war for the soul of heroism itself. It was embodied perfectly on two fronts. First, in Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor, a masterful and terrifyingly modern villain. This wasn't a real estate-obsessed criminal. He was a public relations Svengali, an Elon Musk type person, but what the actual difference with the actual Elon Musk in that this Lex Luthor is someone who is personally capable of all the actual relevant technological skills needed to deliver results. A tech billionaire ideologue who actually is capable of weaponizing fear and misinformation with surgical precision and competence. His goal wasn't just to kill Superman, but to make the public hate him for his goodness, framing his refusal to be judge, jury, and executioner as a threat to global security. And at the same time, Superman had to contend with the other heroes like the Justice Gang, who saw his unwavering moral code as naive weakness. The film constantly asked, what good is a savior who won't do what is necessary? And Superman's triumph wasn't achieved by leveling a city or punching a villain into orbit. It was achieved through an act of radical empathy. The film's climax saw him win not by overpowering his enemies, but by inspiring the very people Lex had turned against him, trusting in their ability to see the truth. His partnership with Rachel Brosnahan's fiercely competent Lois Lane was his most powerful weapon, a union built on a shared, relentless pursuit of truth in an age of manufactured rage. He won by refusing to become the monster his enemies wanted him to be, proving that his most profound strength wasn't his power, but his disciplined, unwavering, and deeply human character. By reconstructing the hero as a champion of moral clarity in a world drowning in bad faith, the film forces the entire debate out of the abstract and into the immediate. It reframes the conversation. His immigrant status is no longer just a backstory detail to be argued over online. The film presents it as the very source of his profound empathy, his ability to see humanity from the outside and love it for all its flaws and potential. He isn't just an American icon. He's an argument for what America should be. And this is why that online argument is so perfect. He's not an immigrant, he's an orphan. People who say this are often trying to push back against what they see as a modern, woke political agenda being forced into their hero. In defense of the conservative, white supremacist status quo, they want the pure, all-American icon they thought they remember, ignoring that even then, this icon was so woke. You can almost understand the sentiment if you don't know the history. And by selective amnesia, you can see how they would feel that way. And so, their argument is based on a false premise. They are trying to protect a static ideal that never existed. Superman has always been political. He was a New Deal champion for the poor. He was a Cold War symbol of American strength. He was a mythic figure of integrity for a nation that has lost faith on its leaders. And today he is an immigrant. He's a refugee. He is an undocumented alien. Not because someone in Hollywood decided to make him woke, but because our culture right now is grappling with those very issues. The story is doing what it always done. It's evolving, it's adapting, it's holding up that mirror. He is both an orphan and an immigrant. He's an alien and a Kansas farm boy. He is the last son of a dead world and the first son of a new one. He contains all of it. The genius of the character, the reason he endures, is that he is not one thing. He is a conversation, a nearly century-long conversation that America has been having with itself about who we are, we want to be, and what we want to believe in. That origin story isn't a backstory, it's our story. And it's still being written. And I, for one, cannot wait to see the next page. What do you think the next evolution will be? What part of our crazy modern world will the man of tomorrow reflect back at us next? Let me know. I really, truly want to hear what you think. This is the good stuff. So, Don't forget to leave your comment below, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. And I'll see you in the next video. Later.